We're getting ready to start the meeting, so if everyone would take their seats, please. Children. All right, I'm going to call the meeting in order. This is the Governing Board workshop for November 3rd, and we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would stand and follow me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we do have a quorum with 8 of our 9 directors here. Director Standenbein is excused. And before we get started, I just want to do a little housekeeping. This is a non-voting business meeting of the Governing Board, and according to Arizona open meeting statutes, Board Docs is the official repository for Governing Board documents. Besides our bylaw and policy, you can also find meeting agendas and any presentations to be used for the meeting. Once the meetings are approved, they will also be posted on Board Docs attached to the original meeting posting. The board recommends looking at the agenda and attachments before attending the meetings, and Board Doc can be accessed from the main page of the suncitywest.com website under the Governing Board quick link. Okay? As an open meeting of the Arizona planned community, even though the board does not vote during the workshops, we will provide an opportunity for cardholder comments on the topics that are being discussed. Any comments need to be directed to the chair. Those in attendance who wish to, can't see without my glasses. Can't see with my glasses. Okay, those in attendance who wish to comment, please come up to the microphone on the left over here. Sign in, give us your name and rec number, and you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. Shouting comments from the audience is not appreciated, so please be kind. All right, for those watching online on YouTube, you may make your comments online. Please be aware that there's about a 30-second delay, but we will address your comments at an appropriate time. We have one of our directors monitoring the comments here. All right. At the end of the meeting, any final director comments, cardholders will have another opportunity to make comments. So, and with that, we will move right into the first order of business, which is the approval of the October 13, 2023 minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, they will stand as written. Moving into new business. Revised policy L5, postings of signs and distribution of literature discussion. Earlier in the year, we separated out the posting of signs and literatures into 2 categories. One was for civilian political activities, which would be state, county, federal, that sort of thing, and which is L4, and then we generated a new policy, L13, for association-specific political activities. And when we did that, there's actually a reference in L5 to L4, but we need to add a reference to L5 containing L13. So for discussion, the red line version of this policy will add, in the first paragraph, this policy establishes guidelines controlling the posting of signs or notices and the distribution of literature or advertising. It does not cover postings or distribution associated with adding civic political activities, which are addressed in a separate policy, L4, and adding at this point, or association-specific political activity, which are addressed in a separate policy, L13, close. So do we have any discussion on that point? All right, seeing no discussion, do I have consensus to move this to the Governing Board meeting for a vote? Yes.
Thank you, President Hurley. When you reference, I'm sorry, my voice is still kind of raspy, although I'm sorry, you're probably sad that I actually have a voice back. So when you reference civic, is this pertaining to just the flags and banners that people are posting, or can you give us clarification?
Sure. We had L4, which only covered political activity, okay? And when the state legislature passed a statute that modified 1808, I believe, there are certain things that association-specific political activity are allowed in the new statute, and to clarify that between what's allowed for civic, federal, state, and that type of political activity from the political activity associated with just association-specific topics, which would be running for the governing board, recall of the governing board, or for consulting before for or against a ballot measure. That is considered association-specific political activity. And that was captured when we created and approved the policy L13. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Do I have consensus to move this to the governing board meeting for a vote? Yes. Okay. Karen will move this to the governing board meeting for vote. All right. New business 3.02, new library concept, architectural design presentations, and a master plan. And this is going to be between our librarian Tracy and General Services Manager Katie. Oh, we've got a whole delegation.
Just the light switch guy. I have a question before this gets started.
Sure.
The agenda doesn't say what the purpose of this meeting is. Is it a discussion or recommendation? What should we expect?
Katie, what should we expect?
Okay, so we were here about a year ago, Tracy and myself, talking about the first year of what is kind of a long-range plan for us for the library, and we've completed that with the software. We want to talk about a concept, a design concept that we want you to consider. We don't want to spend any more money or any more time moving to that next phase unless we get some buy-in that, yes, this is a good thing, let's move it to the next phase. So we want to present that initial concept, get your feedback. If you feel you need a vote to say, yeah, move it forward, then we would ask you to put it on the next agenda. If it's, yeah, this is not exciting, we don't want this, then we're kind of done.
Right. Just for clarification, new capital projects can come from several places. It can come from the board, it can come from the various clubs, or it can come from the staff and the general manager. Okay.
All right.
Lisa.
Thank you, President Hurley. So it makes reference in the presentation several times to master plan. And the question that I have is that we have not seen a master plan yet brought forward from the general manager for governing board approval. So is this part of the master plan or is it not? Because if it is, we haven't approved a master plan.
Good question. This and the design work that's to be done on the Coons Court that's in the budget for next year will be part of the master plan. But before it's actually put into the plan, we need to further it along so that the board understands exactly what the concepts are that they are looking to do. Okay, nothing's been approved. It's not in the budget. We're just hearing more information about what the concepts are. Okay, all right. Any questions? All right, Jack.
Like Lisa, I thought this was also part of the master plan, and I feel like, well, not the cart before the horse necessarily, but I thought that I look at the master plan as a dinner menu, and when we look at individual pieces, it's kind of an a la carte type approach. So it's hard, while I understand there are exciting things about the library, it's kind of hard without understanding where it fits in the overall plan of things.
So I would suggest that in this, I'm going to present some data to you that was from the master plan survey. So it's somewhat of that next phase of the master plan. To put together that final master plan says we're doing this. If you don't like this idea at all, it's which came first, chicken or the egg. We want to know if you like the concept, and the concept is based on feedback we got from the master plan survey. If you like it, we'll take it to the next phase. We'll get some numbers put around it and see what impact that has on the reserves, on dues, on all of that, which then is part of that master plan.
So rather than putting it in a master plan and saying, here's what we're going to do, they basically want our feedback on the idea, the concept. And if we want to pursue it and move it forward, it will go into the master plan. Okay? All right.
Yeah, I don't know if Bill wants to say anything further on the master plan itself.
Dick, do you have a comment?
I do. I too am a little confused. So When you, and I support, I think I support what you're talking about, but I guess I'm confused on when you say it will go into the master plan. Are we going to formally develop a master plan?
So
I mean,
that's
is
a
that-
question for Bill.
Oh, okay, good, because that's the part that I'm also at an impasse on.
Okay, there's an analogy here, and that is the work that's being done at Lizard Acres, okay? The work that's being done is in preparation of putting it into the budget for consideration for next year. A certain amount of work has to be done before it can be put in the budget so that we understand what the concept is and how it fits in the budget. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is along those same lines.
Has the concept changed since it was presented some time ago?
Well, let's wait and see.
I think that's a fair question, though.
I do too. But how do you know that unless you see the presentation? Mr. Schwind.
Briefly, thank you and good morning. Relative to the master plan, this is an update, right? The master plan update is what we were kind of trying to put our hands around. About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we went out and solicited some firms to come in and assist us with working on this master plan update, right? We ran a qualifications and proposal, an RFP out, and we received one response, unfortunately. That was for $350,000. We didn't move there, right? So we took that master plan RFP down to a level that we felt we could afford. And we applied that to series of surveys, some internal work, some external work with 2 individual consultants. And I think to date, we spent maybe $80,000, am I close to that? And so out of those independent studies that we had with interviews, live interviews with community groups and the independent surveys that came back to us, there are about 5 or 6 key elements that really came forward when it came to the master plan. This will all be put together. I don't know if it's going to be in a slideshow or a document, or that is still being worked on. But these concepts are kind of what we're trying to get a grasp of moving forward. Water conservation, golf course enhancements were one of the key elements there. That's a state mandate. We have to do that. We have to knock our golf courses down to 90 acres of manageable turf that's irrigated. The rest, and you all know that story, but we have to put that package together moving forward and fund that moving on. That is part of the master plan update. The other concepts that kind of came forward at the time of the surveys were casual dining. There's a need or a want here that they would like to see a restaurant inside the walls of Sun City West. So we have been studying that and bringing that forward. We don't have a lot of available space to our names, right? We are built out. Maricopa County has a 53-acre piece of land out at the end of Deer Valley Road that was supposed to be a freeway on and off ramp that the citizens years ago voted against, and that ramp got moved over to what is now El Mirage Road. So the county has 50 some odd acres sitting there that is auctionable. You can't just walk in the door and throw money down and buy it. It's going to go to auction. So that's part of the master plan concept. Do we need land? Don't know, right? But that's going to be a board decision, but that'll come forward and that will all be explained in the master plan update. Do we need land to expand? But that, again, like I said, will go to auction. So Tool Brothers Homes and any kind of home developer, they're going to be in the same room with us buying or vying for that if someone walks in, puts $250,000 on the table to start an auction. I'm not sure we're ready for that, but that's part of the master plan update, but that's a reality of where we are. When we talk about restaurants and those types of things, we can certainly put a report together, but a lot of our surrounding communities have attempted to do that, and it requires a substantial amount of subsidy as far as managing these types of restaurants. And so again, that all will be explained. IT, we've always talked about, we know we have to plan for the future of IT. That came out in our master plan as well. So that, and you heard the discussions in B&F committees and those types of things that we're talking about. That all gets summarized and put into this update forthcoming. But again, we're still in the water fishing as far as, we want to make sure when we do bring something forward, it's rock solid, moving forward as we are today. This concept here, as far as the future plans of the library, are another item that has come up in the survey as being a very important or a very wanted item amongst the community. Very highly used facility, oftentimes gets unthunk. Not a library word, is it? Not a lot of folks realize how busy that place really, really is. It generates the same amount of use as our golf courses on an individual basis. There's not 300,000 rounds being played in the library, but there are close to 8,000 individual users that use that facility on an annual basis. A lot. There's a lot of visitation going on. There's a lot of need. And so the future use of club space, the future use of we need rooms, this kind of concept, I think, kind of tackles that issue for us. So this is just another part of the puzzle that we're trying to bring forward in the master plan. So it's a work in progress. And so this is just one step getting us a little bit closer to kind of summarizing where we think we really need to be. Short answer. Sorry.
Okay. Christine, I saw her first.
Thank you. Those were, and thank you very much, by the way, but those were 4 concepts. I noted down the golf and water conservation, 1, 2, casual dining, 3, technology, 4, the library presentation we're about to hear. Off the top of your head, what are the other 2?
Pickleball.
Pickleball and what are we going to do with Kuntz, the tennis pickleball facility over there? Are we going to repurpose it or just, what are we going to do?
Thank you.
5. One's escaping me right now. Okay. All right.
Okay. Dick, you have a question?
I'm afraid that the issue of the master plan has kind of taken precedence here, and I really don't want to do that because I'm very interested in watching this presentation from the library. But do you expect that we will have a document, or when would we be able to see the culmination, of all of this, so we can look at it and hold it in our hands and say, okay, let's talk about priorities, let's talk about cost. Are these things viable? I don't argue with anything you've said. I just need to see a compendium of it.
Right.
So I think that's the issue. And again, I don't want to take away from the presentation from the library because that's really why we were here. This is one of those collateral issues that has kind of taken a life of its own.
Right. And I think this is just one step to getting us closer to doing that. But I see something in early spring as far as us culminating some of this. This is a huge step here today. But culminating this kind of summarization of what this master plan update and what the surveys has brought us forward to this point, I think sometime in early spring we can have some kind of summary presentable.
Sure.
So, and I'm not trying to pin you down, but
Okay.
I am going to try to pin you down. So we could expect to see a tangible document in early spring for this.
February 25th is my birthday. If you want a date, we
I think
can do
that's
that.
3 days after the budget's going to be proposed.
But if we can shoot for February, we'll do it.
I was just asking, and I understand that, and that's what I would look for.
Okay.
Is to see, show me something so I can hold it in my hand and
Will do.
And to make some assessments to evaluate. The whole issue with Kuntz, and we could go on and on. There's a ton of different things. The $750,000 fence at the softball field. It goes on ad nauseum. Where do we spend our money? What are our priorities?
Well, you do have a 30-year plan. It's called the reserve study.
Yeah.
So we know from a very long concept out what we know we need to provide. It's a lot of this new stuff, and it's a lot of the new programming, that type of thing that we're trying to get a grip on as far as moving that forward regarding state mandates and other things like that.
And that's called keeping up with our community to make sure that we're listening to our homeowners and our cardholders, and that this is what they want.
100% correct.
This is not what we want, this is what they want, and we're ambassadors for them.
Perfect. Thank you.
Christine, do you have a comment?
One quick one, and I can't wait to hear the actual presentation as well. I think perhaps we could consider this is the first of 6 presentations that we will see, rather than one big document. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly 6, but I would love to see, it doesn't have to be one big document all in one time, one big presentation, but let's get a future study on technology. Let's get a future study, on each of these concepts, so you can get our feedback early and bake it into that big plan.
So Christine, you're talking about really separating out those 5 concepts into more of a single presentation for that.
Yeah,
concept.
digestible chunks that we can give feedback on as a community and as a governing board, and then we get one large document to consider for the future. It's just a thought.
Right, good idea. All right. And we're off.
All right. Just a word of caution, though, is please don't not pursue this regardless of what happens with the master plan. We're presenting this because Tracy and I have been here before. We think this is important. The data shows it's important. The trends show it's important. And so this is important to the community, in my opinion, and I don't want it to get lost with that other topic. I know the two will go hand in hand, especially when it comes down to the money, but this is an important project for the community.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to jump right into it. And it's important because it was built in 1979. And if you look at those shelves, those are the same shelves that are in that library today. It's the same tables that are in that library today. And as they say, this is not your father's Cadillac. Gen X doesn't want their parents' community. And if we don't modify and change to meet incoming demands, we're not going to be relevant. That number 2 position we love to be in the rankings is because we keep up with changing trends and demographics. And so when we have done expansions here in the past, it's very much been that add a box because we need more space. And we've been shy about looking at the big picture and saying, let's change the library. Well, libraries today are social gathering places. They're community centers. They're senior centers and youth centers. They're not places to go check out books. That's part of it, but it's not all of it. And the way our library is designed with that box mentality that we've expanded in the past is you got a box for big print, you got a box for the regular print, you got a box for the media library or DVDs. And that's fine, and it has served its purpose, but it has made it a boxy facility. Staff can't see through the whole thing. A member walks in, they don't even know some of those rooms are in the back because they're so cordoned off because of the architecture from that 1979 building, let alone the items inside. So let's talk about those items inside. They are 45, 47 years old. Those shelves, exact same shelves we have today. They're no longer safe. The carpet's going to be due in a couple years. The furniture is on the reserve study. Those things are on the reserve study in the next 3 years to the tune of $500,000. So you're going to spend $500,000 anyway. When we do that, you want to tie it together and re-envision this whole library to meet some of those other demands that we've heard about in the surveys and through trends. So I don't want to go replace the shelves and put them back in the same building if 2 years later we decide the master plan dictates a major overhaul. It doesn't make sense. Let's tie them all together. So you could not ask for a better staff than Tracy and Caitlin leading their staff and their volunteers to do all this programming in the library. They're already modifying and adopting it and making it that community center that is so relevant multi-generationally to the whole community. You've got folks that can't play pickleball or golf anymore because they've aged out, but you've also got young people. And what do we know about Gen X? They don't join like their predecessors do. They might join a club, but they'll join a lot of clubs. And they won't do them 5 days a week. They'll do one this day and another one this day, and they want short-term opportunities. They're not going to join one club and stay a member for 10 years and do nothing else. So they're different kind of people. This proposal answers that. We may not need new chartered clubs with a minimum of 75 people. We may have a bunch of tiny special interest groups or arts and crafts. We don't have an Explore program. Those guys have done a great job bringing that into there and answering that need. But if you look at that space in particular, that is the one multi-purpose use space the library has. It was a break room, but we needed a classroom. So now it's partly a break room, partly a classroom. When we modified it, the friends came in and God bless them, put in a divider. So now we have 2 small boxes that are even smaller. It's a VR room, it's a break room, it's an arts and crafts room, it's a meeting room, and it's tiny. And it's way outlived its purpose, and we need to consider, are we going to keep going in this direction to provide this multi-use space for these special interest groups, for the classes, for the Explore, for all of that. Again, you can see what a wonderful job they've done. That's that lovely 1979 shelving and those very heavy wooden tables and wooden chairs. And we know the average age of staff and volunteers out here is a little bit older. They cannot move those tables. And you can't push a round table together to make a big table anyway. So we have to have staff bring in these lightweight tables for the puzzles and other activities. We need things that are made for this type of flexibility. And that is what modern libraries are all about. And it is a specialty. You don't want to bring in just a typical architect. And so when we went out to bid to come up with this concept, we specifically bid it out to people that had library experience. And you're going to hear from Tom and Cindy, and they've got that experience. They've done it before, and it shows in the concept that they're going to present. So just real quick, from the survey, we know in this little peach salmon area here, that's the greatest generation that uses the library, right? It's a nice chunk. It's a big chunk compared to the other ones. And we have a lot to offer in Sun City West, all those different activities, and a huge number use the library. But look how much it drops down in Gen X. That's a big decline, and that should scare anybody. Why is that amenity no longer relevant to the incoming residents? I think it can be, and the first step was the software, and Tracy's going to talk about that, but we need to do a little bit more. Also from the master plan survey, greatest generation, when we asked them, are there enough activities in this community to meet your needs? 89% said yes. That's fabulous. We're doing what we should. And we're not going to go change everything just because Gen X is moving in, but we do know Gen X dropped off significantly. A much higher percentage says, no, there's not enough activities here to meet my needs. And they've got suggestions. We know that from younger generations. They have ideas, they collaborate, they want to change things, they want to make it different. So if we keep doing what we're doing for the greatest generation, that's fine, they'll be happy, but we're not going to be number 2 for too much longer if we don't start changing to be relevant. So Tracy's going to talk to you specifically about what the library's doing, and then we'll get to the architects.
So looking at some of the numbers that we have, again, over 7,000 unique users in a year coming into our library. So we have people coming in from all the different generations doing lots of different activities in the library. I want to make sure we're saying that checking out items is still very relevant, but there are some changes in doing activities within the library. So you can see our DVDs, books, large print are still a big part of what gets checked out of the library, but the ebooks and the audiobooks are creeping up into being more relevant to people coming into the community. I looked at a 3-year time span of like how many people were unique users. So over a 3-year span, we had almost 13,000 people come in to use the space. What surprised me when I first looked at these numbers was 5,000 used the space. They didn't actually check out an item. They could have been using the computers, they could be doing any activities, reading magazines within the library, but they didn't actually check out items. The space was important to these community members. And then we did have, again, 6,000 checkout items, 3,000 digital. So physical items important. So we still, when we're looking at the concept, right now shelving is important. Can it change over generation? So having a concept that right now we want to fit where our community is, but we want to be able to grow with it as needs change with the future of how people check out items. We did have about 900 who just checked out digital. They didn't use the space. So trying to see what are the different needs, what are the different ways we can use this library to fit all those different needs. And so last year I came over with some of the ideas we had going forward. First was that software plan. And so we did move forward with the software and we made the change, and it's been very helpful to us to have that different software to use. And then the next one was to have a consultant, and that's what we're kind of showing you today. Our next idea was have a consultant to come in, look at the space differently. What are some different things? And we also had the reserve study said in 2026, we need to change the carpet and the shelving and the tables and chairs in 2029. So, okay, if I'm doing that already, what other things can I do to make this, so we're not saying, okay, 3 years later, okay, we need to do more space, or this has changed how we're doing it. How can I make the library able to fit new needs easier if we plan for it now, since we're already going to do I don't want to tear up new carpet 3 years later after we put it down. And so some of the needs we looked at for our libraries, modernization. What are the new things to make it look new, appeal to it, also our people now and people coming in? And wayfinding, we talked about, I have rooms that people, I didn't know we had this room. We have this, just finding things, making it bigger signs, easier to find. If you're coming first time, where do you find something? Where do I direct somebody for help? So I just wanted a little bit, can we focus on that wayfinding inside the library? And that multi-purse spaces. So the furniture, can I change it? Like we said, circle tables don't go together. So I have different groups that will come on one afternoon, and then I'll have another group at a different afternoon. So I change how we're using the spaces, or I'm having a craft here, or having a book club on this one. So how do I make those spaces be able to change easily to fit the different needs without doing a whole lot of setup and take down? So we just make it easier for, oh, let's do a quick change. It only takes 10 minutes to change versus 30 minutes to rearrange everything. Meeting spaces, I hear a lot. People, one of the things that people would come in is like, I have a group of 4 people. Is there a space to meet for an hour? Like, I don't have that space. I have my one multi-purpose room, which I have quite a few activities going in. And then I have my study rooms that fit 1, possibly 3 if you're really crowded in. And so they just didn't have, I couldn't meet that need, but I kept hearing it over. We just need, people aren't maybe wanting to meet in their house, they just want to meet in a place that's a neutral spot that they could have a short meeting together. So I was like, can the library be part of that solution with these rooms that kids fit 4 to 6? And so again, these are the kind of things we went to our consultants with. Here's some of our ideas. What do you see in libraries doing that you could bring to us to help us meet these needs that we see in our community? And so again, some of the furniture, some of the shelving, it's been there 44 years. It's lived its life, and so we want to change it anyway. So how can we make sure it's fitting our residents who enjoy the library now, and also incoming residents? What are those going to appeal to them to come in? And so we have our consultants, Cindy and Tom, who are going to show you some of the ideas they came up that we were really excited about to see.
Good morning, everyone. I am Cindy Louie, and this is Tom Durkin. Oh, looks like it's wanting to skip a little there. So we're here to present to you the concept that we have worked with Tracy and her team for the new library, and something that's really unique to us when we were approached by our team was that usually when we're brought on to remodel libraries and look at libraries, a lot of the libraries are looking to update their look, their spaces to attract more users. A lot of the libraries that we look at need to bring in users, whereas this time when we actually met with Tracy's team and spoke with everybody, you guys have a very vibrant community. That was very different for us, to know that there was a community demanding a library that needed a community hub, spaces for them to use and explore, was really refreshing. So we looked at the existing space, and the first thing that we were tasked with was, how do we break up these boxes? Over the years, you guys have had these remodels, these boxes that have been added on, and sure, the square footage holds the books, but they do not support the community that's using them. As Tracy has mentioned earlier, we have a lack of program spaces. She has long wait lists of people wanting to do one-on-ones, VR sessions, different book clubs, all these spaces that are missing in the library. So how do we make this existing library breathe again? The first thing we looked at was, where can we actually expand the library? And because the library is mostly landlocked with a lot of the parking lot and the existing structures, really the 2 opportunities that we saw that we could take advantage of was to the west towards Meeker Boulevard, and then to the north towards the rec center and the rest of the buildings. And these areas are great because they already have existing landscape buffers, so it allows us to bring the building out further, and it also gives us an opportunity to reconnect to the community surrounding. Currently, the library doesn't have a lot of windows. There aren't a lot of views to the community outside of the building, and what we want to do is reconnect the building with the outside and the community that it's serving. The next thing we looked at was how do we break up those boxes, right? That's the number one thing we're here trying to do. So we looked at, what's the existing structure that we could take down to open up the main library so that there's more visibility for the librarians and the staff to see what's going on, and also more space for gatherings to happen, for people to not only check out and look at the books, but also sit, lounge, and gather with their book clubs, commune together with the community for the annual community puzzles. Where can we create a space for these things to happen? So once we looked at the expansion, once we took down the walls, we had a clean slate. So this is the proposal that we looked at. We looked at maintaining most of the administration area, but really opening up the main floor of the library. We looked at expanding different program rooms. So one main core was to the west and another one to the north. And in each of these main cores, we added a large programming space. So to the west, towards Meeker, we added an exterior courtyard and then also a new club space. Now, this club space can be where the community comes and gathers and uses the space for larger meetings, for celebrations, for different types of classes. And we also provided a small coffee bar so that whenever those things happen, that space can be supported with pumpkin spice lattes and enjoying a nice lounging and chatting on the exterior courtyard afterwards. So now this place actually becomes a space that the community can use, they can rent, and they can celebrate in. Now moving north, we felt that the library needed some more quiet spaces. We already talked about how the west side was more engaging, more gathering. How do we create more spaces for the community to come and gather, to do more one-on-ones, to do more educational classes that might need a little bit of privacy from the rest of the library? And that's what we've created in the north corridor. We've added an expanded study room that can be one larger room for up to 20, 25 people, and smaller quiet rooms for one-on-one study sessions. Or it can actually be broken up into two smaller rooms where two different programs can happen. All that is possible with this new plan now. Focusing on those two main accesses, our plan really makes this the new spine. So we have the west corridor becomes your entry corridor, and then the north corridor looking out into the main community. The next thing is, I already mentioned this, but the large program areas that we anchored the spines with. The other thing that we looked at was really providing an identity for the library. Currently, the library's most significant feature is the clock tower. That's what defines the library. Other than that, if you took the clock tower out, you really could not distinguish it from any other buildings in the plaza. It's the same stucco front, it's the same arches, same signage, same everything. So, as a beacon for the community, how do we add an identity for this library that has become so important? How do we make it so that people immediately identify it as a community hub? And that's where we created an expanded canopy at the front entrance and also on the west club expansion to really speak to the language of the architecture that you guys are already building with the new signage and monument sign, but also mesh with the existing style architecture that's already there. And then this is what we had talked about earlier, where coming into the entry, that outdoor community courtyard is now a major asset for this library. And also diverse community gathering spaces. Besides books, we need to make sure that we house the people. So how do we diversify the different pods and types of seating that we have in the space? We add spaces for community tables to be pushed together for larger puzzle gatherings. We also have groupings of 2 and 4 seatings, larger lounge seatings for families. We need to incorporate diverse types of gathering spaces so different things can happen and different generations can use them. So now that we kind of know how we're going to do this, this is the most exciting part. I'm sure you guys are looking to see, what this library can look like. So Tom and I have put together an interior virtual tour to walk you through what your library can be. So coming from the exterior, this is the view looking from the parking lot towards the clock tower and entry to your right. There we go. So we've provided a new extended canopy here that speaks to the modern language you have on the monument sign, and we started creating a rhythm of pillars that make a procession into the library. The entry is now extended out, so there's opportunity for visual signage and a new anchor for people to come in and be guided into the library and straight into the service desk. Before coming into the library, you weren't sure where to go. Now you're greeted with the front service desk, large open lounge spaces, and stacks and wayfinding signage to know exactly where you need to go. Moving up the northern spine, these are the gathering tables where community puzzles can happen. And then we also integrated different seating pods like we talked about earlier for different book clubs, different groups of people to meet and mingle and enjoy their books in. Moving to this study room, so this is the one that's on the north end that we've added for up to 25 or more people to gather and take a class, along with one-on-one quiet rooms to the side. Taking a view back to the service center, you can see the amount of visibility that we've added throughout the library. Being a staff in the library, you can now see everything that's going on 360. We're no longer hindered by those walls. Moving to our main west corridor, we've created several different types of lounging seatings so that families can gather, friends can gather, individuals can gather and lounge. This now becomes more of a community space that feels more like a cafe rather than just a library. And here you can grab your pumpkin spice latte and head out to the patio deck. Looking out through the glass, we have an extended canopy that we've created, a winter seating courtyard. So these are spaces where, when we have amazing weather like we do now in Arizona, people can relax, enjoy a cup of coffee, and read a book. Looking out from Meeker, the exterior of the courtyard now is buffered with new landscaping, and the language still speaks to the rest of the building. We've actually tied the expansion that we made on the club side with the front. This is the study room. So we've still kept the language of the arches. And back here, that study room expansion, the language now ties back into that front entry so that we have the existing library, which is the old architecture, speaking and working with the new architecture coming in. And now we have a community space and a library that really becomes a community hub rather than just your traditional library that holds books. We now hold people, and we have spaces that people can use.
It's very good at speaking. So basically, from an architectural standpoint, we tried to make actually the most minimal moves in terms of removing walls, opening windows so that we could actually expand the space. In reality, we've made very few moves by opening windows, making windows larger, taking down walls that just don't need to be there. It used to be the outside of the building. Now it's part of the inside. It's gone. So we played the games to try and figure out how to maximize what you have with relatively small moves.
Here we have a couple views of the exterior that we showed you before. So this is now the new front entry. Did you want to add anything to that? Okay. That club expansion. A lot of the colors that we chose to use inside and out are desert inspired and are in the warmer tones so that it still works with the existing architecture and is familiar to your community. The arch window that we added on the study cube that I mentioned matches the language of the arches that are existing. So we did try to use as much of the language that was already there and really just further expand upon it and create something new. And that's it.
Quickly, just summarize, we've got $500,000 in things in the reserve study that are gonna have to get done. We know from different surveys and feedback that people are looking for these social gathering places. This is an opportunity to do that in a facility that's highly used and is the visual centerpiece of the community. So this is just a concept. It might change a little bit, but it shows you just how much can be done at that facility. And as a reminder, there was 5,000 people during that time period that Tracy showed you, 5,000 individual Sun City West residents who went into that library and didn't check out a single thing. That is their social gathering place. That is their thing that they do on a weekly basis that connects them to people. And that's really the difference between the existing library and what we want it to be is it's a people hub, not just a book hub. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Directors have any questions? Director Rhodes?
The elephant in the room. Do you have an idea? I mean, is this premature to ask what the estimated cost of this would be?
So ballpark, and talking to our architect and then talking to Carl, you know, 4.5 to 6 million is not out of the question. This is a big change and a big ask. But again, we have that $500,000 already we're going to be spending. So I would say 4.5 to 6 million is what we're going to target.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Christine?
Very compelling, right? And I've grown up in libraries, and they're really near and dear to my heart, right? So a couple of things. I think, Tracy, the usage data ended in August 2022. It would really be helpful if we could get an update at some point. You don't need it today unless you know it off the top of your head.
We are working on getting all those updated. With the change of the new system, I'm getting all the reports getting added in, but we are working on getting that to you.
Excellent. Is there still going to be a drive up or, for pickup and drop off of material?
Yes, the horseshoe driveway is still there.
It's unchanged. Okay. When I think of stuff like this, I think of a concept that needs to not only appeal to our current community, and I think you've done that. You've really considered it very well. But this is something that's going to have a 10 to 20 year lifespan. So people in their 40s, that's who we're building this for. If we do anything of this sort of size and scope, I'm kind of thinking of that as well as of ourselves. So if we're thinking about that, we're thinking about Gen X and people after that, the folks I know that are moving into the community of my age and a little younger are not retired. Retirement is a totally different thing as we move forward. And I think we all know that. You guys have done a lot of generational studies. So when you think about that and the fact that most folks in their 40s and 50s have absolutely no plan to retire. They're going to continue to work in some way for quite a long time. I think, did you consider anything like, it's there, or concept, I think, but co-working type of space?
Yes, so we did look at some of the co-working spaces and some of the lounge spaces that are currently in the city of Phoenix and city of Tempe. A lot of those spaces, the main thing that they had in common were a lot of group breakout spaces and more of a cafe feel. And so that's what we incorporated into the library with the different types of group gatherings. So there are opportunities for breakout. There are closed off areas for work, like in the study room, and then there's areas that, they can further their discussion in more open, or even going out to the exterior courtyard for future discussions.
Yeah, I saw the possibilities for sure. I didn't know if it was considered on a broader scale. So again, I think the technology here is, for me, Director Rhodes had mentioned the finance, but for me, the technology is the elephant in the room for this. Thank you.
Alan, do you have a question?
So I'm going to echo a little bit of what Christine brought up, but I do think we're talking about more than 20 years. I mean, the current library has been 40. And so as you think about this, what we're building today is, if we're as fortunate as we were with the original, hopefully the governing board 40 years from now will be also having this discussion. But that also brings up an interesting point. The demographics of the world are changing, just as they changed when we became retirees. And the demands are changing just as they did when we became retirees. The library today is sort of a fixed asset. It's very difficult to adapt it. And so you have to talk about $4 or $5, $6 million projects. As I think about the future and technology and all of that, what I would encourage us to try to build into us is as much flexibility in that facility as we can, so that 20, 30 years down the road, when we're now looking at whatever is the generation after Gen X, Gen Y, I guess, and so forth, and we're looking at the same changing demographic and the same changing of the world, the ability to move that facility around much more easily than what we're facing now. I would really encourage us to think about how to create a flexible play atmosphere that we can adapt as we go forward without the same significant outlay we're looking at here.
That is exactly why it's designed the way it is. The box format we have now means large print is large print, whether it grows or it's hard to put another type of activity in there. With this open space and the 2 quarters quiet and loud, it's super flexible. If multimedia expands, they just add a few more shelves there and take them from somewhere else. So that definitely was in the plans. One other thing to remember is we don't buy the materials for the library. This is one of our most cost-effective assets that we have. The Friends of the Library do a tremendous job. All the books, all the DVDs, they pay for that. We pay for the utilities and the staff. So we're getting a heck of a bargain for as many people as use that facility.
Thank you.
I have a question for Stacy. On your presentation, you showed people doing arts and crafts, beading, and that sort of thing. How does that happen? Are they associated with charter clubs, or?
Some of them are with charter clubs. I've tried to partnership with charter clubs to come in and teach, and they've been wonderful to come in and teach our groups. Sometimes my last one we did paper pumpkins, and I had just staff and volunteers teach that one. So it's combinations. I have clubs from the card clubs come and teach how to do cards. So I try to work with the clubs, but also sometimes are just generated from the volunteers and staff.
So any of the people that come in and do arts and crafts, do they end up joining the charter clubs?
Some of them do. So there's a neutral place where they can meet. Oh, look at these wonderful people. They have fun, and then some of them join. So I try to make it a win-win. One, they learn a new craft or try out a hobby without having that commitment of having so much, and also the clubs get a chance to have new people consider their club, and so they do have some join from those events.
Okay.
Yeah, and some just do demos, so that they're on a regular basis demoing their craft. People can see it and then go to the club room. And additionally, we have small special interest groups that don't have enough people or the desire to become officers and do all the rigmarole of the bylaws that meet there because they don't want to be a charter club. We have charter clubs that are reaching that breaking point that we got to make some decisions on that would need a home because they've been doing the same thing for 30 years. They want to continue to meet as friends. They don't want to meet in their homes, but they don't justify the space they've got as a charter club. So this answers that. It answers the multi-use space. It answers the social gathering place. the coffee bar. I don't know how many times they've been asked to put a coffee bar out at the Beardsley lobby or something like that. So it answers a lot of what we've been hearing over the few years.
Lisa?
Thank you, President Hurley. So once again, Katie, Tracy, I was here for the first presentation you did, and that was outstanding. And once again, this is a wonderful presentation. I thoroughly enjoy the library. I think, Tracy, you know, I spend a lot of time there. I gather, I meet friends there. It's a wonderful place. I'm totally on board with this. I think it is something we need to move forward on. But I will say in my opinion, it is something that does have to go forward in conjunction with the master plan. So, but I love this concept. I think you guys have done an outstanding job in the layout, and I love the gathering place concept, and I thank you so much.
So let's hear from some of the others. Jack, do you have any comments on this?
I mean, it's an exciting concept. I think that there is value to the community. When I think of projects that we do, I think of what can impact the most people in our community, and I think this is one of those. But like Lisa, I would like to see it done in the context of the master plan so that we can prioritize things. I think this is it's somewhere between a must-have and a nice-to-have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we have some must-haves that we need to consider as well. The one that my hot button is the IT infrastructure to support the next 45 years of Sun City West.
Right. Kay, how about you?
It's an interesting concept, and it was one of the longest stops on our Properties Committee tour of the lower level of this campus a week ago. It was one of the things I wanted to make sure that all the members of the Properties Committee got to walk through, not just see it on the screen, but walk through, visualize the spaces, look at what's there. And thanks to the staff for being so cooperative and answering all our questions. If money only grew on trees, I'd say wrap it up. But as everybody is pointing out, we have a lot of places for money and not a lot of money to put in those places. And so I also go back to, we have gotten off the path of having an approved master plan. And I think it's critical we get back and have one and not say, we'll base it on data that was gathered now only almost 3 years ago. It's a little like yesterday's leftover mashed potatoes when it's that old. Would those be the same answers we'd get if we asked those questions now? So I would just encourage us to make that a high priority of this board. Thank you.
I love leftover mashed potatoes.
So does my husband.
Terry, how about you? You haven't said anything yet.
Well, I think our libraries are diamond in the rough, and I really like the concept that you're coming up with. I like to see the modernization, but like everybody else, we got a lot of places to spend our money. So keep it up the good work.
I guess that's my concern too. We've got a pretty aggressive plan on our golf courses to replace irrigation over the next couple of years. This is essentially another golf course irrigation program as far as the scope of the money. So it's going to have to segue in there somehow, and I don't right now see how that happens. But what would you like us to do? Would you like us to have consensus to move this forward for more planning?
Well, we have the reserve study issue with those shelvings are going to have to be replaced. And
Understood.
so, if that's what it would take to move it forward to reality, that next phase of putting money into next year's budget to get actual plans. But if we're pretty confident it's not going to move forward, I don't want to spend the money on the plans, plus the cost would escalate on whatever initial estimate we got. So right now, I think Carl has some money set aside in next year's fiscal year budget to do that next phase, to get the plans. So maybe this is a question for the finance team, for Bill. I'm not sure. We've got it to where Tracy and I are comfortable. We're happy with this phase, the idea of the changes. So
Well, the next step would be to put it in the budget with a presentation on what the actual cost would be, what the approximate cost would be. So do we have consensus to move this forward to the governing board meeting? And Dick?
I guess I don't understand. Are we recommending to move this forward so we can spend money on,
Planning.
planning?
Yes.
Okay.
So do we have,
I believe
Christine?
so. I think my question might be the same, but if it's to move this to, I'd love to see us be able to phase this out in some way, right? What would be, I don't know where the, Katie, I'm sorry, I don't know where the $500,000 capital when the R&R is it all next year or is it coming up over the next 2 years?
26 and 29.
Okay, so this would be the right time to at least be starting to think ahead on what do we want to do longer term. Thank you. Potentially. So if the consensus is if we're looking for the next step in planning, okay, to phase this out.
Carl, do we have any idea what the planning cost of this would be?
It'll take some determination and discussion. One, are we interested in moving forward with a relationship with this architect and engineer or designer? Number two, you saw the proposed budget so far. Originally, we said 70,000. You will see next week that has moved to 100,000 based on the range of magnitude that they have been able to present to us. That range of magnitude is based on their professional abilities and the conversations that they've had with engineers. So it's solid information. I was able to disseminate things that they need to put into that information to create a range of magnitude that I already know that we can clean up, cut things out. And so I already had a conversation with Katie that said, I know that there's $500,000 that I can just scratch, and it's based on construction trailers and utilities, things that we've done in the past to save money and value engineer projects. So I would say that the potential to leave that 100,000 in the proposed capital budget and an understanding of what I've provided the rec centers over the last 6 years of if it's not what we need, we won't spend it.
Right.
But it gives us the ability to at least come to you and say, we're ready to move forward with this if you're interested.
So it is in the budget for next year, and you're going to escalate the price to 100,000.
I am.
Okay, proposed. Jack?
I'm having a hard time with the sense of urgency on this. I don't feel a sense of urgency on this, and we've also gotten a commitment from the general manager that our master plan will be available in February of next year. So I feel like, again, we're piecemealing what we're doing, which is really, in essence, voiding the need or the use of a master plan. If we're going to nickel and dime it or a la carte things, maybe nickel and dime's not fair, but if we a la carte things, then we're voiding the need for a master plan. So I would not, I would not be willing to move this forward.
Okay, here's what is already in place. He already has $70,000 in the budget for 24-25, which we will approve next year, right? Okay, so that's already in place. They'll do the planning next year, and there will not be any construction until at least the year afterwards. So we're not really hurrying things up. It's just part of the whole planning process.
But we also, by not having the plan in place, we are not prioritizing things. So we're effectively prioritizing the library over everything else that the master plan has, without considering what those things might be or cost.
Dick?
So, Jack, I don't know that I necessarily agree with you on that. I think that what we would be doing is kind of putting this in a parking lot, because if I'm not mistaken, the $100,000 will go towards plans and things that are going to be very relatively generic to this program. but if we don't use it tomorrow, we can use it next year. We may not be able to use the cost estimates, but the actual measurements and the design and all that, that's something that we could use year after year. So we're preparing ourselves should this show up. And I agree 100% that this needs to be compared to all of the other compounding reasons that we have for IT and Kuntz pickleball or Kuntz tennis and all of that. But this is going to, if we permit this, and we could actually remove that $100,000 before June or May. We can pull that off. All we're doing is we're putting in there and has kind of in a parking place that we will use it, or we can change our mind in May and say, no, we're going to pull it out. But I think we're positioning ourselves when we say, yes, we're going to go ahead with this, because this is a product that we'll be able to use, if not next year, at a later time.
Right, and we will approve it individually
Yes.
during the budget season.
Yes.
I have a question for Katie. Katie, when do we expect to have a plan or a proposal on IT updates?
I need to get with Bill and get some feedback on how he wants me to pursue that, but I know he had some ideas on it.
I think, Katie, thank you. And I think, Tim, if we kind of go back to Christine's comments earlier relative to the master plan update and start presenting these concepts, these 5 or 7 issues that we're dealing with, do a couple of them, knock a couple of them out at workshops, I think that would help get us to the end game in February, which is really right in the middle of budget prep, getting us to, and you all to May, June for final presentation. Again, these are placeholder positions moving forward. Master plan concepts do not mean that we're going to do everything in the next 15 minutes, obviously. This is something that we're looking out into the future to make sure the reserve study has funding for it. And that's really the game that we're playing here, to make sure. I mean, we have policies that basically dictate, what our percentage on that fully funded balance is. And so we have to make sure that we're kind of healthy in that direction. And, we have a lot of commitment. You mentioned a couple of golf courses coming up over the next 4 years to kind of knock those out. And so, so this is long-range planning. And, but it's important, I think, for Carl's end and Pete's end to make sure we got realistic numbers on square footage and concepting as far as what we're doing today. And I think it's important. But moving forward, I can see an IT presentation maybe at the December workshop. Moving that forward, we can talk pickleball January. We can mix a couple of these other things together to start formulating this thing down for a February conclusion on what we feel this master plan update is really all about moving forward, and then go from there.
Well, I just want to reinforce Jack's point that we'll have 4 or 5 things in front of us based on the master plan.
Correct.
Most likely won't be able to do everything all at once.
Correct.
So we will need time to be able to prioritize the various parts of the master plan so that we take care of the things that really need to be done first. Okay, that's what I'm asking, Jack.
So apparently, since I am in the minority of not the consensus, I would ask that if we're going to start tagging dollars for these types of projects, that we tag them with the word master plan so that we can begin to track them easily throughout the years.
It's a fair point. Lisa.
Thank you, President Hurley. I'm along with Jack on this only because right below this line item in that budget proposal, there's a line item for the Kuntz tennis courts. It sits, I believe, Carl, if I'm not mistaken, for $50,000 currently for the Kuntz tennis courts.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to mention, is that similar to this concept, the whole point of the $50,000 request for tennis, and mind you, the expected cost for the renovation of tennis is much less than this library concept, so that's why the request is less for the research that I need from architectural and design on that project. So you can see how things are proportionate. they're also the items that I need to get the final number for a master plan list of 5 or 6 items.
Okay, we don't need consensus to move this forward since it's already in the budget. We'll have opportunities to discuss it as that portion of the budget comes up. Everyone fine with that? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Tracy? All right, moving right along, 3.03. I'm sorry. Oh, come on down, make your comment. Didn't see you back there. You kind of blend into the wall.
Chameleon. Gary Bosak, 102585. I just want to remind us that a few years ago, there was a tremendous amount of debate about spending $2.5 million repairing the R.H. Johnson pool. After all the dust settled, we spent $4 million and got what we got today. So let's not think about putting a Band-Aid on something. Do it the right way. Second thing is what makes the library unique. It's a 501c3. And I don't think R.H. Johnson would be bothered if his name all of a sudden disappeared off the building and someone else has appeared for a cool $500,000 or some significant number. What I'm suggesting is a fundraising campaign. You got a lot of people that are very committed to the library. I could tell from the comments on this end of the board here, you got 2 people that would probably like a room named after them. I was on the board of trustees at the college I graduated from for 10 years, and I'd be embarrassed to tell you what I paid to have my name on a teacher's office or a row of lockers in the football. I mean, it's just people have their money available and they choose to where to spend it. But in this case, it's tax deductible. So at the risk of being very commercial about it, I was thinking the R.H. Johnson Library.
That's an excellent point.
That's a street. And the new people here probably think that's where the name came from because it's on R.H. Johnson Boulevard. Well, right. Yeah, it's the guy's name. So, but we got a lot of people that frequent the library that are also of the age that they have their estate planning done. And I can't imagine if we had the right kinds of conversation, you'd have a lot of money pile up that would eventually wind up going to the library. So something else to consider.
Okay, great. It's a great topic for the Friends of the Library to take up. Okay. Another great comment, Gary.
Made you nervous for a while, didn't I?
It did. All right. Anything else on this before we move on? Okay, 3.03, recommendation discussion, credit card fee update. Director Rhodes.
Thank you. I want to make some opening comments before I do talk about the recommendation. We in the Budget and Finance Committee, we spent a significant amount of time discussing credit card transaction fees. There were multiple ideas where we could focus for early success. Invariably, the compounding issue was our lack of IT functionality. And total disclosure, our IT system was not created to handle the demands that we want to put on it right now. Our recommendation to the governing board to assess transaction fees for all credit card purchases will help us establish several fronts. At this point, I want to read the recommendation that will go to the governing board. It was crafted in our October 24th. That credit card transaction fees be assessed for all credit card purchases within Sun City West. Okay, and that was approved through the Budget and Finance Committee at a 6-1 vote. Okay. First, the governing board has not established a policy if we want to charge a transaction fee to continue incorporating what is in essence a transaction fee into our budget. Our recommendation will formalize this. Secondly, the elephant in the room is the current IT system. It's not good or bad, it's simply not built to handle the transactional demands that we're looking for. Editorially, my expectation, and this mirrors what we've been talking about with the library and with all the other issues that we're concerned about from a priority perspective. Editorially, my expectation is that our general manager will help develop a financial estimate and timeline for building or modifying our IT system to seamlessly accept credit card payment debit card, and ACH, or what we would call e-checks. Third, there's no question that we're facing a cashless society. However, we want to provide viable choices for our homeowners and our members. So at that, our recommendation is, I'll read it again, is credit card transaction fees will be assessed on all credit card purchases within Sun City West. So Mr. President, I would turn over to you for the discussion.
We have consensus to move that to the governing board meeting?
No, a question, although I sit on the Budget and Finance Committee, have any of the other committees had the opportunity to discuss this yet?
I'm sorry?
I don't think so.
Say that
no.
again? I didn't.
Her question was, have this been passed by the other committees?
Oh, I thought we were to bring it to the budget or to the governing board.
Well, golf needs to review it because that's a big portion of it. So, Dick, if you would forward this to the chairman of the other committees, and we'll have them look at it at their next meetings.
Okay, when we talk about the other committees, are we talking about golf and properties?
Golf properties and charter clubs. Right. And sports pavilion.
And sports pavilion?
Right, the other 5 clubs.
We'll be happy to do that.
Just as an interesting note, as I was reading past DNF meetings, I came across the presentation from Mental Toad, and that was 2019, I believe. So I will send the link to the other directors, and you can take a look at what, we had a consultant come in 5 years ago and basically look at what we do things and what some of their recommendations were. Sure.
Thank you, President Hurley. So Director Rhodes, I have a question. I asked this question once before, but it wasn't directly to you. I believe it was at an ops meeting, but I'm going to ask again. One of the things that was in here was eliminates the risk of getting bad checks. And the question I asked before was, what is the amount approximately of bad checks that we get, per se, on an annual basis? And I have yet to get an answer.
I think Cliff could provide an answer for that.
I know. Thank you.
Our CFO, Cliff's
Right.
one.
Fortunately, we do receive bounced. Fortunately, we're able to collect on virtually all of it. So, yeah, we've had $6,000 and $4,000 respectively for the last 2 years that we've written off on tens of millions of dollars each year in collections. So we do a pretty good job. And again, you know, when you process a credit card transaction, you get paid right away. And the credit card settles up with whoever processed it, with their customer. E-checks and checks are the same. So if someone pays with an ACH or an e-check, it takes 3 to 5 days to clear our bank, just like a regular check. So, you know, we can anticipate that we'll probably have to be chasing down some more of those bad checks or bounced checks.
Okay. Okay, ma'am, we're going to do director comments first, and then we'll have your comment. Go ahead. One more, Cliff.
Cliff, I'm sorry, if you don't mind. In also reading Director Rhodes' presentation, there's one more item in here I have. If I'm reading this correctly, it reads that if you pay by debit, there is no fee for debit as opposed to paying by credit card. Is that correct?
Yes, legally we cannot charge a processing fee for a debit card transaction.
Okay, and
But do we get charged a fee from the debit company card?
Yes, we do. It's a smaller fee, but there is a fee in there. I don't know exactly the percentage. I can get that, but yes, there is a fee.
Okay, Lisa, do you have anything else? I just want to throw that in.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, and are we looking to pass that fee on as well, or we cannot pass that fee on?
We cannot pass that fee.
Thank you.
Jack, do you have a comment? Okay. All right, we're at the end of the meeting. We're going to do director comments. I'm going to start down with Christine. Do you have any comments, Christine?
No more than I already have had made, so thank you.
Thank you. Lisa?
No, thank you.
All right, Jack?
No, thanks.
Okay.
Nothing at this time, thank
Do
you.
we have anything on YouTube? No, we do not. Okay. Dick?
I have no comments.
Alan? Terry? All right. Ma'am, if you'd like to walk up to the microphone there, give us your name and rec number, you can make your comment.
My name is Jean Campbell. My record is 128214. My comment was, and I think you covered it at the end, sort of passing over, is that if we're going to, as I understand it, I'm not up to date on what's going on with credit card things, but if the idea is that the person who uses the credit card would pay the fee, then I think you have to expect that you're going to have a substantial, significant increase in the number of checks. So based on how many checks bounce now and the time period that you're talking, you're going to have to multiply that by a big multiple. So you can't just take the static data of what there currently is. That's all.
Right. Okay, thank you. That all be taken into consideration. Yes, sir.
Yes, good morning. Bruce Lees, 135422. I want to thank the Budget and Finance Committee for taking the task of credit card fee implementation seriously to nail down a recommendation to the governing board to charge credit card fees to persons using credit cards for purchases in Sun City West. I encourage the board to adopt this measure and immediately take steps to incorporate ACH functionality into the payment systems to allow residents a choice of how to pay for goods and services within Sun City West. The City of Peoria just this week implemented a 2.8% fee for credit card use within some of its service payments to include the use of debit cards. Steps should be taken to pass fees on to persons who use credit cards and not burden the community at large with the absorption of costs who use alternative payment methods. Fees should only be charged for credit card use and not debit card or ACH payments in accordance with current law. Also, a quick comment as far as fraudulent or lack of funds for ACH transactions and debit card use. Technically, when you swipe your card, the bank already knows whether or not you have the money in the account, so there will not be an overdraw or a return check or something similar to what we encounter with a person that writes a physical check and submits it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Lynn Kellis, 129120. I did a little checking, going to some markets and things out in the public, and did some other research. You're right, we can't charge a credit card fee for a debit card. However, you can charge a surcharge for that credit card. So it's not like we just have to eat all that. We do have that option. The customer at that point has the option of saying, no, I don't want to do that, I'm going to use cash. We can't refuse that, but it is an option.
Okay, thank you. Wonder what this guy wants.
I want your money.
This is Tom Jones.
Thank you, Jack. Sorry I wasn't here the last time to be able to correct you, but I'm with the Automotive Restoration Club, and I don't know if you can see this on the website. This is our poster.
He's even bringing props.
You bet. And I got tickets. Poster for our car show, February 10th. In the corner of it is a picture of a 2016 Mustang raffle car. Also, we have our registration for cars. Our club members do not show their car for judging in the car show. These are all visitors. These are people from Peoria, Glendale, Las Vegas, California, wherever, coming here to our car show and seeing the community. So if you have friends that have a classic car that want to show it, pick up one of our registrations and have them come show their car and look over the community. They'll love it. 1 for 20, 6 for 100. I have it in my hand. I have a pen, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We hope it's a roaring success.
Nick Turner, 131829, and I'm embarrassed to have to come and do this, but I think it needs to be done. I heard a rumor yesterday. I heard a variation on that rumor this morning, and I heard a second rumor this morning. And I thought through the president of the board, if I could confirm or have this confirmed or denied. Apparently, between 3 and 5 of you do not live in Sun City West. 2 of you live in Sun City. 1 of you lives in Surprise. That's the rumor and the variation. It's between 3 or 5. So I'd like to know if the governing board are in fact residents of Sun City West and this is your main home. The second rumor is that at least 5 of you on the governing board are being paid more than $100,000 a year for your service.
I like that rumor.
Yeah. I know it's.
No, I think we need to take this seriously.
Yeah, I know it's. This is what is being said around the community about the governing board, and so I'd like those rumors. I mean, it won't stop them, but at least let's have something on the record to the.
Unequivocally, by
that says
bylaw
that-
and by state statutes, we have to live in the community, and we cannot take any remuneration, thank you, or money. Let's just say that. That's right, we cannot be paid. And on top of that, we cannot accept any gift over $25 a year. So we're here because we like to serve the community, what can I say?
Thank you.
Let's not go too far. Okay, any other comments? Okay, before we start, I just want to make one other comment. Dick is going to send his recommendation to the other committees. What the recommendation it really intends is to send that recommendation to the governing or to the general manager so that he can provide the data as to what it would take to do what we're intending with the credit card fees.
And what is Dick expecting from the other committees in return for sending it to us?
Well, sports viewing has money, that they take money, golf takes money. Properties, just as a courtesy to them and to charter clubs, yeah. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, if not, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 10:29. Thank you.